Hi, I'm Daryl Lauder. I'm one of the 3 designers for Fate of the Elder Gods. I'm here today to give you a how to play Fate of the Elder Gods. You're going to start off with 8 Lodge player mats. These here are going to be your Lodge boards. You're going to keep track of your cultists, as well as your condition of winning or losing in the game. We also have 8 reference cards, 4 turn cards, and 4 Fate location cards. We have 1 game board, aka the altar. We'll put that in the center of the table for everyone to easily have access to. Next to the library location, which is the red blood moon icon, we're going to put a stack of 65 spell cards, shuffled and face down. Between the Streets of Arkham location and the ceremony location, we're going to put 20 shuffled curse cards face down. And between the museum and Otherworld location, we will put down shuffled 20 artifact cards face down, and then we will turn 2 of those face up next to the deck. Between the ceremony and museum locations, we will place 15 gate cards. No need to shuffle these as they are the exact same front and back. We have 10 Fate dice. Just make sure that those are in reach of all players. If you look over the Elder God cards, to the left of their name you will see a circle with a number of dots inside that circle. The number of dots is the recommended minimum number of players. So if you are playing a 2-player game, for instance, you'll want to remove the ones with 3 dots. Next up, you'll want to grab those Elder God cards. You'll want to shuffle those up and deal 2 to each player face down. Each player chooses 1 Elder God and returns the one that they did not choose to the game box. Each player will then take a Lodge card that matches that Elder God that they have chosen. Next, we have 40 Elder Sign tokens. You want to place those between the Streets of Arkham location and the Gathering location on the table. Next, we have 8 Winter Squall tokens. These will only be used if the Elder God Ithaqua is in the game. Otherwise, these will be returned to the game box. Next, we have 4 Summons Track tokens. Give 1 of these to each player in their choice of player color. Those players will take that token and put it on the top of their summon track on their Lodge board. Next, we have 25 Investigator miniatures. We will place 1 Investigator miniature at each location, and then put the rest in a supply next to the Elders tokens between the Gathering and the Streets of Arkham. Next up, we have 4 sets of Cultist miniatures. You will give each player all 20 of their chosen color. Once each player has their cultists, they will place 7 of those in the Abyss, which is the center section of the altar board, 1 at each location, and then the remaining 7 on their Lodge board in the rectangular space on the right-hand bottom side. Next, we have 2 Fate Piece miniatures. These are the Stone Cthulhus. If you're playing a 1 or 2 player game, you will use both. Otherwise, you'll just use 1. For the rest of this how to play, let's act as if this is a 3 or 4 player game. If you want to know more about a 1 or 2 player game rules, check pages 15 and 16 of the Fate of the Elder God rulebook. Before gameplay, pick up this deck of spell cards, the one that we placed between the other worlds and the library. Shuffle those spell cards well, and deal 1 face down at each location. This is going to be the start of the astral column for each of these locations. After you do that, deal 3 spell cards to each player face down. These are the player's spell hands. Place the remaining deck of spell cards back between the library and the other worlds face down. Give 1 player all the Elder God cards that were chosen. That player will shuffle them up face down and flip 1 over. That is the start player for this game. All play will rotate clockwise around the table. Now that you have your Lodge card in front of you, each Lodge is dedicated to their Elder God and contains the following very important game information. Across the top, you will find your spell reserve. It is here that the player may ready spells to be used later. A spell reserve can only hold a maximum of 3 readied spells. Next, we have the name of the Elder God, This is the one that your cult is worshipping and trying to summon forth to kind of give planet Earth a big hug. Underneath that, we have the Elder God's Dark Gift. Each Elder God provides a unique dark gift to their cult that is activated when the Fate Piece is moved to the ceremony location. Each gift is very powerful, and when used strategically, can be the difference between a victory and defeat. Beneath that, in that rectangle space I mentioned earlier, is where your cultists are housed within your Lodge card. On the left-hand side, the art page of the Lodge card, you'll find your summon track. This is the circular track that we have, and this is the track that each cult will use to progress towards summoning their Elder God, and their failure to prevent investigators from sealing their Elder God from this world with powerful Elder Signs. This track is your lifeblood in this game. Now let's look at the spell cards that are in your hand. When face down, the back of each spell card reveals an astral symbol. Spell cards have one of 5 different astral symbols on their back. Astral symbols in your hand are open information. So the back of your cards, anyone can ask to see what you have. On the front of your card, we have the spell side. On the face of your spell card, across the top, you will see a series of bookmarks. This is the cost to ready your spell in astral symbols. Beneath that, we have the astral symbol that is on the back of the card. This is here so you don't constantly have to look on the front or back of your card. Below that, we have the spell name, and then at the bottom we have an ability. There are 2 steps to using a spell in Fate of the Elder Gods. First, the spell must be readied by paying its cost in the astral symbol shown at the top of the card and placing it face down above your lodge, in your spell reserve. Spells are then cast at any time for no additional cost by simply flipping the spell card face up and immediately activating the Allistic ability. After a spell has been cast, it is then immediately discarded. You may be wondering to yourself, well, how do you win this game? How do you summon forth your Elder God into this world? It's a great question. So Fate of the Elder Gods has 2 different endgame / win conditions. Each has a different victory requirement. So the first one is flat out summon your Elder God. As player takes actions during the course of the game, whether casting dark spells, sacrificing their cultists to the abyss, or braving strange curses, they inch ever closer to the ultimate goal of unleashing their chosen Elder God into the realm of existence. The summon track on each player's lodge represents the status of the cult in summoning their Elder God. The summon track's token starts on the Necronomicon symbol at the top and advances clockwise toward the number 9. When a player moves their summon token to the 9 of their summon track, the cult has summoned their Elder God. Unless triggering a curse that prevents the victory, the game ends immediately and that player immediately wins. The other way to win is bending the ear of the Arkham investigators. Elder Sign tokens represent magic seals created by the intrepid investigators that are desperately attempting to seal away eldritch horrors and prevent the Elder Gods from entering the world. When gained, Elder Sign tokens are added backward on the summoning track, starting at the 9 and working around to the Necronomicon symbol, so a total of 10 tokens. When an Elder Sign is placed on the Necronomicon symbol, filling the track completely, the game immediately ends and that player loses. Then all players check their summoning tracks for Elder Signs. The player with the fewest Elder Signs on their track is the winner. They happen to do their dirty deeds without being noticed and are able to continue on for another day. If players, though, are tied for the least number of Elder Signs, the tied player with the most summoning points becomes the winner. If still tied, the cult shares the victory. One thing to notice about the Elder Signs. During the game, when a cult's summon token moves onto the same space of an Elder Sign on their summon track for the first time, that cult becomes cursed. Any additional movement onto the Elder Sign tokens will not result in additional curses. I will go over curses here very shortly. Alright, next up, let's go over the main engine, how to play the game. So Fate of the Elder Gods is played in a series of rounds in turns, and each turn is divided into 4 phases. The Prepare phase, where you'll resolve pre-movement spells. The Move phase, where you can play astral symbols and move the Fate piece to a new location. The Activate phase, where you'll be able to activate a location's abilities. And the Conclude phase, where you can ready spells, draw cards. Each player completes all the steps of their turn before the next player in a clockwise order starts their turn. So first up, let's go over the Prepare phase. At the very beginning of your turn, the Prepare steps allows you to resolve any spell abilities that may occur before movement. During this turn, you will also refresh any exhausted artifacts in your possession. An exhausted artifact is an artifact that you've used previously and is turned 90 degrees. The next step is move phase. The move phase of your turn is comprised of 3 parts. 1 is moving the fate piece to a new location. 2 is checking to see if investigators at that location move onto your lodge. And 3 is placing your cultist and a new investigator onto that new location. As we noted earlier, the back of each spell card displays an astral symbol that matches one of the locations on the altar. To move the fate piece, place one spell card from your hand face down outside the location that the fate piece currently resides, and move the fate piece to the new location that matches the astral symbol you just played. Alternatively, you may instead play 2 matching astral symbols as a wild to move the fate piece to any other location on the altar. The fate piece must always be moved to a new location and can never stay at the current location. If their card's already outside the location, place your new cards face down behind those previous cards to continue to form the astral column. If you're lucky enough to hold a gate card, you can use a gate card for movement. Gate cards are a special type of spell card with a nexus symbol. You can only gain these at the ceremony location. When you play a gate card outside the location where the fate piece currently resides, you move the fate piece to any other location as if you had just played 2 matching astral symbols. So it is, in essence, a wild. Players cannot hold more than 1 gate card. A gate card does not count as a spell for checking on hand size. Next, investigators moving to your lodge. If the location where the fate piece now resides holds 3 or more investigators, move all investigators from that location onto your lodge. If there are 2 or fewer investigators, you ignore this action. Next, we will do cultist and investigator placement. You'll place one of your cultists from your lodge and 1 investigator from the supply onto the fate piece's new location. You're up to dirty deeds and the investigators are wanting to know what you're doing. If you have no cultists in the lodge, you will take 2 cultists from the Abyss and place 1 on your lodge and 1 cultist onto that location. But as a penalty, you will gain 1 Elder Sign on your summon track. If there are no remaining investigators in the supply, then all players are immediately raided by the investigators. I'll go over raids here in a moment. Once that raid is completed, you will place 1 investigator from the supply onto the location as normal. The third phase of your turn is the activate phase, and it's divided into 2 parts. A basic action provided by that location that must be performed, and the optional control action. The 2 parts must be performed in that order. Basic action followed by the control action. Basic action is outlined within the location abilities in the rulebook, so please check those on page 12 of the Fate of the Elder Gods rulebook. For control actions, those will also be listed within the rulebook, but to have control of a location, a cultist must have 3 or more cultists at that location, and also the most cultists. If they're tied, no cult has control. If you have control, you may perform the control ability. If you don't have control but need or would like control of a location, you can have temporary control. As a free action, you will roll 1 fate die. On the result of a Cthulhu head, your cult gains temporary control of that location, and you can take the control action this turn only. The 4th and final phase of your turn is the conclude phase. This is comprised into 3 parts. Ready a spell if you have the mastering astral symbols to pay the cost. Draw a spell card, or you draw your hand up to the minimum number of 3 cards. And the investigator's raid if you have 5 or more investigators within your lodge. The 3 parts detailed must be performed in this order. First, ready a spell. Again, these are all optional. After resolving movement and completing your location's actions, you may ready 1 and only 1 spell if you have the appropriate astral symbols in the location's astral column. Readied spells can then be cast from your spell reserve at any time by flipping them face up to perform their ability. To ready a spell, choose a spell from your hand with the cost that matches the astral symbols in the current location's astral column, including the location's symbol, and/or your readied spell slots. That's right, all face-down readied spells, those icons also can come into helping you cast future spells. Show all players the readied cost at the top of the card, being sure to conceal the name and the ability of the spell to confirm that the cost has been paid correctly. Then, place the spell face down in the available spell reserve slot above your lodge, and discard all cards at the astral symbol at the location, whether those symbols were used to ready your spell or not. To cast a spell, reveal a readied spell at any time, perform its ability, then discard the spell card. Spell cards may be cast at the same turn they are readied. When a spell is cast, it interrupts the flow of play and the ability is immediately resolved. Some spell cards may note specific times when they can be played or actions which will trigger their use. Rules and text written on these cards overrule any text within the rulebook. Cast these spells when appropriate. Next up is drawing spell cards. Draw one spell card, period. If you have less than 3 cards, continue drawing until you have 3. You will always end your turn with a minimum of 3 spell cards. However, there is no hand limit, so you could always have more. A gate card does not count as a spell card for this phase in checking hand size. If there are no spell cards remaining in the draw deck, shuffle all the discarded spell cards together to form a new draw pile. The third and final action within the conclude phase is the investigators will raid. If you have 5 or more investigators in your lodge, the investigators will raid you. So what happens in a raid? When investigators raid, take 1 die for each investigator on your lodge, and roll the dice at the same time. Based on each die result, the raid results in the following order. If you get the greater elder sign, you will gain 1 elder sign. 1 investigator remains on your lodge. With the elder sign complete, the tenacious investigator feels emboldened to continue their righteous task. If you get the lesser elder sign, aka the elder branch, you still gain 1 elder sign, but this investigator slinks into the shadows and is returned to the investigator supply. If you get a tentacle or the Cthulhu head, destroy 1 investigator on your lodge. At the end of the conclude phase, the next player in a clockwise order then begins their turn. For altar location abilities and rulings, please check pages 12 through 14 of the Fate of the Elder Gods rulebook. There's one last thing we have not touched on, and those are curses. Curses are cards that present unknown misfortunes that may befall a cult as they tamper with great beings and powers beyond their realm of understanding. When you gain a curse, the cult to your right draws the curse card in secret, and only they know when your actions will trigger something truly horrible. Players can become cursed in a number of different ways, from spells, arcane artifacts, Elder God dark gifts, encountering elder signs on their summon track, and much more. When you gain a curse, the player to your right draws 1 curse card and secretly reads the text. You do not see this card at all. Each curse card details a special condition that causes the curse to become revealed and a penalty that you will then immediately resolve. After the player to your right reads the curse in secret, the curse is placed face down in front of them. It is now that player's responsibility to watch your actions, and if you ever trigger the curse, they must reveal the curse card immediately. When a curse card is revealed, the game is briefly interrupted to resolve the curse. The player to your right reads the curse aloud and the penalties listed resolve immediately. Once the penalty is resolved, the curse card is placed on the bottom of the curse deck. A cult may gain multiple curses. A curse card always stays in place until resolved. If a curse can be fulfilled when the curse is drawn, then it is immediately revealed and the penalty is immediately resolved. Revealing a curse is not optional for the player holding your curse card. When the conditions of the curse are met, the curse penalty is immediately resolved and no abilities may be used to prevent it. That is the overview of Fate of the Elder Gods. Thank you very much for playing, have a good game, and bring forth the end of the world!